I remember that evening so clearly. The low hum of chatter, the clinking of glasses, the warmth of Sarah's hand in mine. We were at her cousin's engagement party, ironically, and I felt a deep, settled contentment. Our own engagement, just 2 months prior, still felt new and exciting. I was watching Sarah laugh with her aunt when I heard it. A hushed murmur from a couple of her older family friends nearby. "Poor Sarah," one woman sighed, her voice thick with pity. "It's a blessing she found Alex, isn't it?" the other replied, a little too loudly for a whisper. "After, Noah." My contentment evaporated, replaced by a prickle of confusion. Noah? The name meant nothing to me. Sarah had never mentioned a Noah. I tried to dismiss it, telling myself it was a misunderstanding, a distant relative I hadn't met, but the way they'd said it, the pity in their voices, it clung to me. Later, as Sarah was getting drinks, I found myself next to Lisa, a mutual friend who'd known Sarah since college. I tried to be casual, glancing at the group from earlier, so heard some interesting whispers, I said, forcing a light tone. "Sounded like someone named Noah came up. Who's that?" Lisa paused, her smile faltering, her brow furrowed, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "Oh, Alex, I assumed Sarah would have told you." Her gaze softened, a deep, unsettling sadness settling over her features. Noah was her first love. They were together for years, practically since high school. Everyone thought they'd get married. She took a breath, her voice dropping. He died, a car accident, just suddenly gone. It shattered her, broke her completely. My world tilted. The air in the room grew thin. "Died?" I managed, the word feeling foreign on my tongue. When did that happen?" Lisa looked at me, a genuine concern now replacing her surprise. "About 2 years ago. It was awful. She moved here, to the city, maybe 4 months after. She started dating you, 7 months later?" 7 months. The numbers echoed in my head, each digit a hammer blow. 2 years ago. 7 months later, she met me. My fiancée, the woman I was about to marry, had a ghost in her past, a monumental, life-altering tragedy, and she'd never said a word, not a single word. My brain reeled, trying to connect the dots of a story I'd been completely excluded from. Her guardedness, the way she sometimes avoided talking about her past, her fierce independence. It all suddenly clicked into a terrifying, coherent picture. It wasn't just a secret. It was a carefully constructed wall, and I'd been living on the wrong side of it. A lie. Our entire relationship built on a foundation of omission. We were back in our apartment. The city lights a distant blur through the window. Sarah was humming softly, scrolling through her phone. I stood there, rooted, the words forming a heavy lump in my throat. I didn't want to hurt her, but the deception felt like a physical pain in my chest. "Sarah?" My voice was rougher than I intended. She looked up, a soft smile on her face. "Yeah, babe?" I took a breath, trying to be gentle, trying to be calm. I heard something today, at the party." I watched her, saw the immediate, subtle stiffening of her shoulders. Someone mentioned Noah. The smile vanished. Her face went utterly blank, a mask of profound sadness descending so quickly it was like watching a light switch off. Her eyes, usually so warm, turned cold, distant. For a beat, she just stared, the silence in the room suddenly deafening. Then, a tremor ran through her. "You went digging," she whispered, her voice barely audible, laced with an accusation that cut me deeper than any shout. Her eyes narrowed, the sadness morphing into a raw, furious anger. "You went looking for it. Why, Alex? Why would you do that? To ruin this? To ruin us?" Her voice rose, cracking with emotion. "It's my past. It has nothing to do with you. You have no right." She threw her phone onto the sofa, the soft thud echoing the sudden, violent break in our perfect evening. Before I could even formulate a response, before I could explain, she turned on her heel and walked away. Not to our bedroom, but to the guest room. The door clicking shut with a finality that left me standing alone in a silence that screamed. The click of the guest room door echoed in the sudden, cavernous silence of our apartment. Sarah was gone, physically and emotionally, leaving me stranded in the aftermath of her fury. I stood there, rooted to the spot, the city lights outside blurring into an indifferent haze. My chest felt tight, a confusing knot of emotions twisting inside me. Anger, sharp and hot, for the secret she'd kept, the years I'd spent in the dark. Confusion, cold and unsettling over her explosive reaction. "You have no right!" As if my hurt was irrelevant. And then, a creeping guilt, a whisper that maybe, just maybe, I had caused her pain, digging up something she'd buried for a reason. The weight of her retreat, her complete emotional shutdown, pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. I paced our living room, the quiet too loud, the space too big. My phone felt like a lifeline, a desperate plea for perspective. Mark, my best friend. He'd know what to say, how to make sense of this. I called him, my voice rough, when he picked up. "Dude, you busy? I just had the worst fight of my life." He grunted, probably sensing the gravity in my tone. "Never too busy for you, man. What's up?" I launched into it, a torrent of words tumbling out. The party, the whispers, Lisa's revelation about Noah, the car accident, the 7 months. I recounted my careful confrontation, my attempt to be gentle, and then Sarah's complete, devastating explosion. I left nothing out, desperate for him to see my side, to validate my hurt. I mean, she kept this from me, Mark. Her first love died. She dated me 7 months later. I feel like I've been living a lie, like a replacement. And then she blows up at me for finding out. Am I crazy? I finished, panting slightly, waiting for his immediate agreement. There was a pause, longer than I expected. "Okay, whoa, Alex," he finally said, his voice measured, completely devoid of the righteous indignation I'd hoped for. "Look, I get why you're hurting. I really do. That's a massive thing to find out." I braced myself, a sliver of relief cutting through my tension. "Right? Thank you. But," he continued, and my relief evaporated, "you went in pretty hot, man. Think about it. This isn't just a secret. This is her first love. Someone she probably thought she was going to spend her life with. Died. Suddenly. That's not just grief, Alex. That's a bomb that went off in her life." My jaw tightened. "But she should have told me." "Yeah, maybe. Eventually. But you confronted her bluntly about the most profoundly traumatic thing that's ever happened to her. You, who never knew him, never knew that pain." Mark's voice was firm, almost chastising. "People cope differently. Some talk, some bury it so deep they forget how to breathe without the weight of it. She probably tried to build a new life, a fresh start here with you, because the old one was shattered. She didn't want to be poor Sarah who lost Noah anymore. She wanted to be Sarah. And you just ripped the bandage off that wound with a sledgehammer." He emphasized Sarah's immense, unbearable loss, the common coping mechanism of burying grief. His words landed like blows, each one chipping away at my certainty. He was my best friend, and he thought I was out of line. Later, a text from another mutual friend who'd clearly heard about the confrontation from Lisa popped up. "Hey, heard what happened. Rough situation, man. Sarah's been through a lot. Be gentle." Isolated. Condemned. The words echoed in my head as I stared at my phone. I still felt the sting of betrayal, the validity of my own hurt. How could she not tell me something so fundamental? But Mark's blunt assessment, echoed by another, forced me to look beyond my immediate pain. I started pacing again, but this time, my thoughts weren't a furious whirlwind, but a meticulous, uncomfortable reevaluation. Sarah's guarded nature, her sudden move to a new city, leaving everything behind, her subtle avoidance of past topics, always deflecting with a quick joke or a change of subject. Her desperate need for a fresh start. I'd always thought it was just her ambitious, independent spirit. Now, it looked different. Not just as signs of secrecy, but as desperate, frantic attempts to escape an unimaginable, unprocessed grief. A grief so profound, it had reshaped her entire life. The "am I the asshole?" question that had festered in my gut slowly, painfully transformed. It wasn't about my hurt anymore, not entirely. It became, how much pain must she have been in? My anger didn't vanish, but it was slowly overshadowed by a dawning, unsettling sadness for Sarah's solitary suffering. I pictured her, alone, trying to outrun a ghost, building a new life on shaky ground because the old one had crumbled so violently. The secret wasn't malicious. It was a protective shield, forged in the fire of trauma. The guest room door remained shut. Sarah maintained her distance, a chasm reinforced not just by a closed door, but by years of unspoken pain. I still didn't know how to bridge it, how to fix what felt fundamentally broken. But I knew one thing: the path forward wasn't about accusation. It was about understanding. The guest room door still stood as a silent, unyielding barrier. For 2 days, it had been a physical manifestation of the chasm that had opened between us. I'd given Sarah space, partly out of necessity, partly because I needed my own. But the quiet of the apartment, once a comfort, had become oppressive, filled with the echo of Mark's words and the unsettling truth of my own introspection. My initial anger, that sharp, hot sting of betrayal, hadn't vanished entirely, but it had curdled into something else. A deep, aching sorrow for Sarah. Mark was right. My hurt, valid as it was, had been a blip compared to the seismic event that had shattered her life. The secret wasn't a weapon, it was a shield, hastily erected against a pain so profound it had reshaped her entire existence. My confrontation, in its raw, unthinking urgency, had been a violation, ripping open a wound I hadn't even known existed. I saw it now, clear as day. The guardedness wasn't about keeping me out of her past, but about protecting herself from reliving it, from being defined by a grief she couldn't outrun. And in that realization, my focus shifted. This wasn't about my validation, it was about her healing. I found her in the living room, curled on the sofa, staring out at the city skyline. Her shoulders were hunched, her posture radiating a weariness that went deeper than just lack of sleep. I walked slowly, deliberately, and sat on the coffee table opposite her. Not too close, not too far. She didn't look up, but I saw the subtle stiffening, the telltale sign of her walls going up. "Sarah," I said, my voice soft, almost a whisper. "I'm so sorry." She flinched, then finally met my gaze. Her eyes were swollen, red-rimmed, haunted. "Sorry for what, Alex? For digging? For ruining everything?" Her voice was flat, devoid of the earlier fury, replaced by a devastating emptiness. "No," I said, shaking my head slowly, earnestly. "Not for finding out, for how I did it, for the way I confronted you. I was insensitive, and the timing was awful. I wasn't thinking about your pain, only about mine, and that was wrong. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I really am." I watched her, holding my breath. A flicker of something, surprise, confusion, crossed her face, quickly veiled. Her chin trembled almost imperceptibly. "I was so angry at first," I continued, speaking slowly, choosing each word with care. "Confused, like our whole relationship was built on something not real. But I've been thinking, really thinking, about everything, about what Mark said, about what you must have gone through." I paused, letting my gaze hold hers. And I realized the secret, it wasn't to hurt me, it was to protect you. Because the pain, it must have been unbearable. And I'm so sorry you've been carrying that alone. Her carefully constructed defenses, those walls I'd seen rise so many times, wavered. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her eyes, fixed on mine, welled up, shimmering with unshed tears. "My concern isn't about your past, Sarah," I pressed gently, my voice still low. "It's about our future. And if that future means you carrying this immense unspoken pain, building walls to keep it hidden, then it's not really a future for us, is it? Not a real one. Because I can't be a partner to someone I don't truly know. And you can't heal if you don't let anyone in. The dam broke. A choked sob escaped her, ragged and raw, tearing at something deep inside me. She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking violently. I didn't hesitate. I moved from the coffee table, sat beside her on the sofa, and gently pulled her into my arms. She resisted for a moment, a last desperate attempt at self-preservation, then collapsed against me, her body racked with tremors. He was everything, she gasped, her words muffled against my shirt, fragmented and broken. Since 16, we had plans, everything. And then the car, just gone. Her voice was a thin, reedy wail. It was so fast, Alex, so quick, and I was supposed to be with him that day. I changed my mind last minute, and then I felt so much guilt. So much guilt. I held her tighter, stroking her hair, my own eyes burning. Shh, it wasn't your fault, Sarah. None of it was your fault. I couldn't breathe, she choked out, pushing away slightly to look at me, her face a tear-streaked mess. Everywhere I looked, he was there. His clothes, our cafe, his family. Looking at me with that pity, I couldn't bear it. I just wanted to escape, to outrun it, to start over. I thought if I just buried it, if I built a new life, a new me with you, that it would go away, that I could just be happy. Her voice cracked on the last word, the despair utterly heartbreaking. I thought I had to bury him to be with you. Oh, Sarah, I whispered, pulling her close again, holding her face in my hands. Never. Your past, your grief, Noah, he's a part of you. He always will be. And that's okay. It's more than okay. I love you. All of you. And that includes the parts that are broken, the parts that hurt, the parts you've been trying to hide. You don't have to carry this alone. You never did. We face it together. We heal together. That's what being a partner means. The conversation was agonizing, a slow, painful excavation of years of buried pain. But as her sobs finally subsided, as she leaned against me, exhausted and raw, a fragile lightness entered the room. A palpable shift. She lifted her head, her gaze meeting mine, and in her eyes, amidst the lingering grief, I saw something new, immense relief, a raw, terrifying vulnerability, and a dawning, fragile hope. We didn't have all the answers. The scars of her past, of our initial breach of trust, wouldn't magically vanish. The healing journey was long, arduous, and uncertain. But for the first time, truly, we had taken the first crucial step. We were no longer standing on separate sides of a wall, but side by side, on a new foundation, built not on perfect disclosure, but on shared vulnerability, empathy, and a love that was finally, truly beginning to understand.